Hey everybody, welcome to today's live optimization session. So this will be the first of many live optimizations via YouTube. We're going to be doing this the last Friday of every single month, so you can kind of mark your calendars to attend future live optimizations. Today it is just me riding solo. I'm still getting a hang of all the live stream software, making sure all the connection's stable, everything's running smoothly. So I thought for this first one, I would just take a little bit of time, run through some emails, give you a couple of hot takes, and hopefully some tips on optimizing your own emails before bringing in some special guests starting next month, where we'll be inviting future participants, some email experts, some friends of Litmus, some hardcore email geeks onto the live stream to help optimize all these different emails. So I appreciate everybody hopping on. I see a couple of you in here. Feel free to use the chat uh, throughout this session. If you have any comments, any feedback on these emails that we'll be going through, I would love to hear them. I would love to see that chat pretty busy and just dump it in there. Any of your thoughts, any of your gut reactions to these emails, I'll be doing the same, just kind of live talking through it. So I guess without further ado, let's get started. So let me switch my screen over here. Out from the submissions here that I think are really good examples of what a lot of people are typically sending, and have a lot of room for improvement, even though they're doing a lot of things really well too. So I'm gonna kind of start from the bottom here. The first two actually are non-native English speakers. So the first one is in Spanish or Portuguese. I'm a little bit confused because the sender mentioned that she was sending from Mexico, but when I opened it up in Google Chrome, Translate identified it as Portuguese. But either way, I have the original version as well as the translated version, so I can actually read what's going on because I don't know Spanish or Portuguese that well. The second one is from a Swedish audience member. So again, I don't know Swedish, so again, we're going to use Google Translate to help us out there. And the other two I can read perfectly fine. But yeah, let's dig in and get started here. So the first one is from Lucia. It is ESET. It's a renewal email. So this is, it looks like it's some sort of like cybersecurity product. It's all about, securing your device, your account, and it's getting people to renew their account when an expiration is coming up. So really just looking for feedback around the general feel, the composition of the email, and whether or not it gets people to click and renew their account so that they can keep their devices secure. So we're going to go into Litmus Builder. That allows us to, look at the code, look at the email side by side. We can pop open email previews pretty quickly here and see how that email renders across all those different email clients that people are using out in the wild. Right now, I'm just going to focus on the browser view here and show off this email. So again, it's ESET, Enjoy Safer Technology. So this looks like it is in Portuguese or Spanish maybe. It looks more Portuguese to me, but again, I'm not fluent in Portuguese or Spanish. So I'm actually going to pop this open. I have it translated from Google inside of Chrome here to make it a little bit easier to provide feedback. So we have this big banner, important notice. Your device is no longer protected from online threats, but you can still renew, and then a green CTA to renew now. That CTA is repeated a couple times here. There's a little bit of copy explaining that you're a trial user in this case. The software no longer receives updates from the threat registry and can give you improvements to help keep your account secure. A couple of calls here for some benefits of using ESET or ESET or ESET, whatever it's called. So there's free technical support in your language. They have awards and recognition worldwide, and a bunch of educational content to help you keep your devices, your technology safer. So something that I actually enjoy about this email is how straightforward it is. It's right in your face. It's saying, you need to take some action here. But I feel like it almost feels spammy or like a phishing threat, because it seems so kind of generic, I guess, with this notice. So it's not very like specific about like what device is being protected, what kind of online threats you are being secured against when you do renew your account. So it feels almost like an email you would get when somebody's trying to fish for your details, trying to scam you in some way, because it is so generic and not specific enough in its language. So I think it could really be improved by pulling in that user's some details from their account so that they can see that they have that existing relationship with your service. And they can see, your device, whatever that happens to be, like an iPhone 12 or, a Galaxy S7 or something like that. It shows that they know who you are, what your device is, and that this is actually an email from a security company that is trying to keep your account and your device safe, as opposed to somebody that's just trying to get some details on your account. I think that could go a long way in helping people understand that this is a trusted email, and yes, I do need to take that action to renew now. The CTA is up here. I feel like in this section, I guess throughout the email, could really use some breathing room around it, to make it a little bit more easy to read and contrast it against these different sections, and in theory easier to actually tap on. But it's pretty clear, that the CTA language I think is fine. That renew now, like that's the action you are going to be taking, so it makes sense to use that. But maybe that could be changed throughout the CTAs. There's 3 of them here. They all use the exact same language, which is good. It's clear, but maybe varying that language a little bit throughout the CTAs, tying it into each section might be helpful. But yeah, that's kind of like the main stuff I want to focus on for this email. But let's look at it inside of Builder. See, I didn't think it was really optimized for mobile. We see a little bit of content dropping down here. But I think this could really be made better on mobile devices. Better stacking of these different content modules, making sure the tables and these containers are fluid so that they will shrink down on those different devices, or shrink or scale on the device depending on what size the device screen is. Just make it easier, especially if a lot of people are opening on mobile. Like it's still, mobile opens are typically around 50% of opens industry-wide. That obviously differs per audience. At Litmus, we have like a really low mobile open rate. It's around like 12 to 14% or something that on a typical send. But a lot of people are opening their emails on mobile devices, especially if this is securing a specific mobile device. That you want to make sure that it's usable and that people can take action on that mobile device. So making sure, embracing something like media queries, that traditional kind of responsive development approach, or hybrid coding that works across a wider range of devices, and email clients would go a long way to making this more usable. I do want to see what this looks like with images off. So this is really cool. I think this is something that this marketer does really well, is that the images are almost entirely decoration at this point. So if we turn them on, you can see it's just these icons. It's the logo. So for email clients that have images disabled by default, or if there's some mobile bad connection on your network and it can't download those images right off the bat, then all this content is still accessible because it's just HTML text styled with CSS, which is probably the best way you can go about building these emails to make sure that they're as accessible as possible for the widest range of users in different scenarios. So even when those images are off, people can still understand the message, the main content. They can still take action. It looks like they're using these bulletproof buttons, which is awesome. So I think they do that really, really well. It might be cool to see a little bit of alt text, maybe for a little bit better alt text for this logo that has brings in some of that tagline too, which would be easy enough to add. So it's ESET, but enjoy safer technology could be brought into that top alt text right there, so people get a little bit more branding, a little bit more context for who this is being sent from. I'd love to hear anybody's feedback for this email in the chat. I am keeping an eye on it there. I see Jay's in there. I see the folks from Really Good Emails. Somebody named Monkey Manjabo. I don't know who you are, but thanks for joining. Feel free to send your feedback over here and let me know what you think about this email. But really, yeah, I think the main thing is making it more responsive for those different devices. Giving some more breathing room and maybe a little variation in these CTAs to get more people to click on that CTA. But I think the major thing is making it more apparent that you do have an existing relationship with your subscriber. Especially in this case, it's all about security. It's all about being safe online and with your devices. And the company that's sending it should do everything they can to make it clear that this is a real email. It's not a phishing attempt or anything like that. In theory, even with trial users, you would have some sort of device information that's being protected. You can pull that in. You could pull in, your account name as opposed to something like trial user to make it clear that this is legit. We are here to serve you and to help make sure your devices are secure, and we will do everything we can in that capacity. I feel like this kind of like accolades and benefits of the program could be filled out a little bit more too. Maybe with, especially around like the awards and recognition worldwide, instead of just saying you have awards and recognition, maybe pulling in some of those logos or some reviews that you've received for your service to give a little bit better social proof and make it more clear like what kind of recognition you've gotten, because there are a lot of just, it's anybody can say they have awards and recognition worldwide, but how do you actually back that up and prove that you have that kind of industry recognition? And make it more clear about like what kind of technical support you can get, whether that's, it makes it seem like you can get voice support, like phone support based on this icon, but that might not be the case all the time. So make it clear like when you can call, when you can use online chat, if there's email support, all that kind of stuff, so people know exactly what they're getting into. But overall, pretty simple, straightforward. If anybody does have any comments, feel free to leave them in the chat. If not, I'm gonna move on to our next email, which is from a Swedish sender. So let's go back to Litmus here. I have a folder set up inside of Litmus for these live optimization emails. So this one is from Bo, and it's uphandling24, uphandling24 maybe. So this is from a Swedish sender, and this is an interesting one because I feel like it's a very good example of what a lot of people are probably sending when it comes to their email newsletters, and I think there's a lot of room for optimizing it and making it more readable, more usable, and more relevant for their subscribers. So the whole campaign goal for this email is to send relevant news stories to their audience and make them read the whole story on their website as opposed to the email itself. So it's all about getting people from point A to point B, point A being the newsletter itself, point B being the website and that full article. But really just looking for tips on everything. It's a small operation, sending this, putting it together, so any help is beneficial. So I see one of the comments in here based on that last email said, great point regarding the existing relationship. These would make it seem more genuine, as this could come across as a scam email, so we would reassure the customer, and I totally agree. So thank you for that one, Monkey Manjabo, I'm gonna call you. But this uphandling24 email, if we pop it open in Builder here, we can see that again it's in a different language, Swedish this time, so I don't fully understand what's going on, but I did use Google Translate to help out a little bit, so the text here gets translated so I can understand it a little bit more. Some of these images obviously don't because they're images and Google's not that advanced yet to replace that kind of content. But I do get a little bit more context. It looks like it seems to be a newsletter from an environmental agency of some sort that's committed to tackling climate change, developing or promoting green technology. It seems like everything's kind of around that topic, which is awesome to see. I love, organizations that are trying to tackle such a massive problem like that. But the first thing you'll notice is how long this email is. So there is a ton of content in this email campaign. I get it that it's a newsletter. So newsletters can be a little bit more lengthy, especially if you have a lot of articles to send out to people, or if you only send an email quarterly, a newsletter quarterly or monthly, depending on your publishing cadence. It's it could get really, really long in the tooth, and that is definitely problematic for for your subscribers, because a lot of times people will open up an email like this, they'll give it a couple of quick scrolls and just see how long it is and immediately be overwhelmed by that. So I think Jay, you mentioned in the chat, has great advice. Maybe focus on something in particular as opposed to everything you published over the course of the past month, something like that. So that's my advice too. I wholeheartedly agree with Jay's comment, is that it would probably be beneficial to focus on maybe 5 top articles from your news roundup, and potentially send this email newsletter a little bit more frequently. So this seems like it might be sent out monthly. I'm basing that just on this seminar that's coming up. It's has a particular month, October 1st. I don't see like any date like this is the October or the September edition of this newsletter, but it seems like it's probably on a monthly basis or maybe quarterly. So there's a lot to go through. So maybe send this out every other week or weekly, depending on how much content you actually have to promote. That would allow you to cut down on the number of articles and links you have in here, and allow people to focus on specific topics. Maybe do like themed newsletters each week or every other week or something like that. I see there's like these jobs, this kind of job board down here, which is awesome. I love, giving people room to promote different opportunities. So maybe break that out in its own dedicated newsletter that people can subscribe to, that allows you to feature these jobs a little bit more, kind of focus in on that and allow people, a place to look that they know they can. If they're looking for a job, they can go to the Handling 24 job newsletter. Jay asks if it gets cut off in Gmail. My guess is probably. I didn't check it to be sure. We could probably open up email previews here, see if it happens in. If I have Gmail even open here. Yeah, so Gmail Chrome. So we'll give Lamissa a second to catch up here with live streaming. Previews can be a little bit slower on my end. So surprisingly not. So that's interesting. So it seems like at least their HTML and their code, the file delivery is pretty tight, pretty controlled. So it looks like it's all displaying in Gmail, which is awesome. Yeah, somebody mentioned the 102 kilobyte cutoff. I did see that. Well, I guess that's for AMP-based emails. The cutoff for Gmail, emails in Gmail when you're using an AMP email, is a little bit higher than the 102 kilobytes cutoff, which is kind of cool, but not too many people send AMP emails yet. Jay, I'm as surprised as you are that this didn't get cut off, because it is a very, very long email. But yeah, maybe breaking out each of these sections in their own dedicated newsletter, or sending your email more frequently would allow you to focus on specific types of articles and content. This is all training stuff that's coming up, so they have a lot of training sessions. Again, that seems like that would be a dedicated newsletter as opposed to mixed in with job board stuff, in-depth studies from this purchasing council. All of these seem like blog posts on here, which is really interesting, but gets just lost in the mix here. So some other things you could do, though, to help engagement a little bit more, to make it feel less overwhelming, is maybe to just add some white space in between these different sections. So everything's just kind of stacked really, really tightly, one on top of the other. So we could, just add some white space between this. This looks like a pretty clear section. These two kind of, I guess it's these three kind of lead articles here. It looks like there's a little ad in between here. But that looks like a distinct section. Add some white space or some more clear headings between this featured section, the rest of these articles you're looking to in this kind of 2x3 grid. Some more white space between the in-depth study from the purchasing council section. Just white space is your friend in design. So you want to use it to to help gauge navigation, people actually looking through that content, to reinforce like a hierarchy between these different sections and where the important things actually are and what's kind of secondary or tertiary to the main message of that email campaign. And maybe, we talk about hierarchy a lot in live optimization and email design in general across our webinars and blog posts and all that kind of stuff at Litmus. But I think you could, the designer could reinforce hierarchy a little bit more too by maybe having some clear headings for each of these sections. So if this is like featured articles, you could have a big like H2 or something up here that says featured articles, but obviously translated for the Swedish. This could be like from our blog or like recent news or something like that. Give it some white space, give it a nice big heading, and then people know what that content is. This in-depth studies, like these reports, could be their own section. The jobs, like, the latest from our job board, just giving those clear delineations, that hierarchy between these different sections would allow people to scan through the email a lot quicker than they could right now so that they can find what they're actually interested in, because there is so much here. So JS, is it all images and not much HTML? It looks like it seems like it's a little bit of a mix here. So obviously we have the images in there. Let's go through and toggle those. So yeah, those images go away, but the bulk of like the actual content is HTML, which is awesome. So again, when those images are disabled, people will still be able to understand that content. I am a little bit sad that there's not some alternative text on any of these images, especially when we're looking at this first one, which seems to be promoting an upcoming event that they have on the 1st of October. So that seems very important. Like, this is an essential thing that they are promoting. So when images are turned off, which a lot of subscribers will see this scenario, you don't have any context whatsoever for that event. So it seems like one way to tackle that would be to use alternative text. So people could, it could be like upcoming seminar, October 1st, click here to learn more, or something like that for your alternative text. Hopefully that's linked so people can actually do that. You can even use CSS to style your alternative text and make it look more on brand than just this kind of like blue blinky text that we see normally. But it's really sad that that really important thing that's supposed to be front and center is completely missing when images are disabled. The other stuff, I guess, doesn't really matter as much. Like, it seems more decorative. These ads obviously seem important, so you'd want to do the same for that. But these pictures of the people, they're cool. It's good to have human faces and real people in your email, because people tend to connect with that a little bit more. But it's not a big deal if those are missing, because it has the HTML text to back it up. Another thing you could do is use background images are a great solution for these kind of content blocks, like these event modules or kind of promotional modules here. So it doesn't, there's nothing super fancy going on with this image, other than, that background, that green kind of world graphic. But that could be a background image. This main heading here could be HTML text styled with CSS. This button could be a bulletproof button so that even when images are disabled, you still get that full context. It's still usable and people can take action there. Jay, another great comment, using emojis in alt text is a fun thing to do. Maybe not for this brand in particular, but if you could use some emojis in alt text, it does work pretty well across email clients, and that's a great way to add some graphic goodness, add a little bit of fun, and pique people's interest to get them involved here. But yeah, I think the main point of feedback for this one is to cut down on how much content is in there. Add a little bit of white space, some stronger hierarchy to these different sections if they are all going to be in there, so that it's easier to scan the email, easier to find what you're looking for. I do want to see what this is looking like on mobile. So yeah, I do remember it being fluid and responsive, which is great. So we saw like the 2 column sections stack to a single column on mobile. But again, this is just adding to the length, the amount of scrolling that people are doing on their mobile devices, and it's just a lot to get through. So I think just some curating would be helpful, being a little bit more, editorial in your decisions and in what's going to um, make it into the newsletter. Maybe doing more frequent newsletters so it doesn't all just build up in one kind of monthly or quarterly thing would be great. And I totally agree, Jay, that the branding is really consistent throughout, which is awesome. So it's very clear that this is from this organization. If you're familiar with it, you will understand exactly who it's from, why it's important to you, and how you can kind of take action. One of the things I did want to mention too is the CTAs. I think could get a little bit more love too. Nearly everything is just read more, which is descriptive, I guess. You're pointing people to an article where they can read more about this topic, but it doesn't really do much to get people excited about reading more. So using some more clear descriptive language of what they're going to read more about, bringing in some of the topic that the article is, and like bringing that language into the CTA could be helpful in getting people to actually click through and read those articles outside of the email itself. But I mean, it seems like it's really interesting content. I think it just needs to be displayed a little bit more thoughtfully, a little bit more maybe minimalistically, so that there's more breathing room and people can understand it a lot easier. But overall, not bad. I think this is really probably feels familiar to a lot of people because a lot of companies are sending newsletters like this. So I don't think the senders, Bowie, are doing anything wrong. I think it's, you're doing a great job working with what you have. You did mention it's a small organization that's working on this. And I know how hard it can get with time crunches, with different stakeholders trying to do a lot with limited resources. Even the limitations of the ESP that you happen to be using or the design tools you're using to put something like this together could all feed into what the result of that email, like what it actually looks like, how it works in practice. So again, not doing anything terribly wrong. I think it just needs a little bit of love and a little bit more white space and hierarchy and some curation. And I think that would be a great way to advance this newsletter. So the next one is from Ruby. So this is from Armstrong Ceiling and Wall. Jay, you mentioned that last one, the Openling 24, would be a great candidate for using templates or like reusable modules. And I totally agree. Like, you have very clearly defined content sections. Like this is an article module. This is a smaller article module, even though it's nearly the exact same thing. It's just shrunken down, put in 2 columns here. These are the Purchasing Council report modules. This is an event module and a training module. You could break those out into reusable little code chunks that you store in. If you're using something like Litmus Builder, you can have those partials or those snippets saved there in Design Library. If you're using like Dreamweaver, that has the same option for using snippets, things like that. You could be using Taxi for Email that allows you to kind of build out those modules and expose them to marketers as it's kind of like a CMS for email marketing, which is pretty cool. A lot of different options for making this more reusable, easier to build in the future if this is being kind of like hand-coded or copy and pasted from past newsletters. This could really be templated out and take a more modular approach to make the production of the email a lot easier. The next one is from Ruby, from Armstrong Ceiling and Wall, which looks like it's a A company that supports contractors that obviously work with ceilings and walls and construction. So it's really all about engaging contractors with their products and services. This is from the marketing automation and lead generation specialist, Ruby. Thank you for sending this one in. I hope you see this. And really, just all feedback is welcome. This one's a pretty short one, a far cry from the last newsletter. Pretty short, straight to the point. But I do think there's a lot going on in here that could get a little bit more design love and get a little bit better for your subscribers and for those contractors that you're trying to sell to. So right off the bat, with the first thing I kind of notice as I scroll down here is the age-old debate of whether or not you should include social icons, or kind of this feels kind of like a navigation bar. There's the navigation bar up here as well, on whether or not emails need navigation bars, if they need to feel kind of like your website, if you need these social icons included in your email campaign. So my almost default response to that is no. I'm of the feeling that all of these extra links in the navigation bars, all these extra links for these social channels, they are noise and kind of work against the main signal here. And we want our signal to noise ratio to be really, really low. So we want less noise, we want more signal, and really focus in on the links that you're actually trying to push people to. So you want people to find out more about this continuous load path, find out more about what's new from Armstrong, become part of the contractor club, which I think is fantastic. Like, that almost seems like that should be the focus of this email, is creating this community of contractors, getting them swag, all that kind of cool stuff. Focus on that as opposed to all these extra kind of secondary links. I do know that other people hold different opinions. I've debated this with Chad White from Oracle, who used to be at Litmus for a long time, about whether or not these nav bars are useful in email. His theory is that they are good, because if your main content doesn't really address a need of the subscriber, they have something else to look towards. So if they're not interested in the contractor club or this continuous load path technique or tool, they can go hit up the video library or schedule some training, even though it talks about continuing education down here. So there's other options for people to pursue if the content doesn't really fit their need at that time. But I would argue that it's more noise than anything else, and doesn't really do a lot to get people back on the site and interacting with the company. Granted, you should test that out. Obviously, run some A/B tests. Look at your analytics, see if anybody's actually clicking on these links or your social links down here, and see if it's doing anything for your company, for your sends. If it's not, then rip it out and focus on what's really important, which to me in this email should be this contractor club, because I think it seems like a unique value proposition for Armstrong. They're there to create a community of contractors. They're there to promote your success and give you the support you need as a contractor to do your best work. And yes, they obviously want you to use their tools, their training, their systems to enable you. But I think that's such a cool thing to see. We're trying to build this community. You can get some cool swag. You can get some support. You can hear other contractors' stories, see how they're tackling their challenges. It seems like that should be front and center for you. I do think if we're looking at social down here, combining those two things, the contractor club and the social elements, could be really interesting, because I'm not in the contracting industry, so I wouldn't really necessarily expect a company like this to be super active on social media, to have a lot of interesting stuff that I'll actually want to follow and get updates from them. It seems like a very transactional kind of thing. I'm a contractor. I need these supports for this ceiling that we're putting in. I'm going to go there. I'm going to buy it, and then I'm going to get out. I'm not going to think about Armstrong that much until the next job comes around. But if you are doing this cool thing like building a community with a contractor club, and you're tying that to your social media, then you could make a really compelling argument for including these links and maybe bringing in some of that content from, say, your Instagram channel. Like if you have some people posting cool stories, make that into a GIF and add it in here. Add some images of people, tagging Armstrong ceilings or something on their own social media profiles, and bring that in and combine that with the call to follow them on social media. Combine that with a call to join the contractor club to really engender that sense of community and make it clear like how cool that community is. If it's a really awesome community and there's a lot of people that are active, don't just mention that it's there. Show people why they might want to join that community. Um, uh, Beyond that, I think again, CTAs they're straightforward, but we could work with a copy a little bit to make them more appealing to actually click on. So not a member yet, even just adding like join the contractor club or find your family or something like that. That speaks more to like the emotional goodness you're going to get out of clicking that link would be helpful. For this continuous load path, it says strength where you need it the most. Maybe instead of find out more, it's, see how we can make your ceiling stronger, or like make your ceiling stronger or something like that. Just tweaking that kind of language and making it more appealing to people usually goes a long way into getting more engagement, more click-throughs on your emails. I'm kind of curious how this works without images. Let's toggle those off. Again, similar to what we've seen today, some good HTML and CSS there, which keeps it accessible, which is awesome. But maybe room for improvement, adding some alternative text to these images here to make them a little bit more accessible for people that aren't having their images enabled or they might not download in time. Overall, not too bad, since you do have that HTML styled with CSS, that good semantic goodness for people to devour when they're using images off, or they're using something like a screen reader to consume that content. On mobile, I think this one was responsive. Yep. Which is awesome to see. It looks like it breaks down on mobile really well. Everything just sort of stacks, which works out well. Even this 2-column section in the footer breaks down in a single column layout, which is fantastic. But I did notice that when it's scaled down, these smaller images get scaled up because they're filling that space. And this is a great area for improvement, especially as more people have, honestly, most phones and like mobile devices have high DPI screens these days. So when you're using these smaller images and then they're kind of scaled up, they're forced on that higher resolution screen, which I don't know if it's that apparent in the live stream right now, but at least to me on my computer monitor, this is really, really blurry looking. Like it's scaled up, it's pixelated, it looks like it was scaled really poorly because it's a smaller image being scaled up. That's what a computer is going to do. So replacing some of these images with the kind of the retina images would be really helpful and make your brand look its best when people are opening this up on high DPI screens. So again, that's relatively simple. You essentially just take your image. If you have access to, a larger image of this, you save it out at a larger size, like an actual dimension size for the image. So if this is like 300 by 300, you could save it out at like 600 by 600 or 1200 by 1200. And then you just use code, the HTML attributes themselves on that image tag, to scale it down to make it a little bit smaller so it fits in that space. But then when it's viewed on mobile, it's nice and crisp and clean. And there's plenty of articles online. Just search for the Litmus blog, Retina images, and we have some resources to help you through that process. But it's great that it does scale down on mobile, and I think it does a really good job of doing it. So if anybody has any comments for Armstrong here, I think this was from Ruby, I'd love to hear them in the chat on YouTube. I'm going to give it a second. I do know there's a little bit of delay between what I'm doing and the chat. So I'll give it a second here before I move on to the next one. So a couple of comments, totally agree that Retina images are helpful in making your brand look good on mobile. I think that's kind of like table stakes these days in my mind. But a lot of people aren't really like savvy to that issue. because they're not not in the email marketing industry or the design industry. Like they don't spend all their time thinking about this kind of stuff, which is what we typically do. So it seems obvious to me. A lot of people it might not be obvious too. So I can't really like fault them too much, because they might just not have been exposed to that issue, or they get enough emails in their own inbox where things look like that. It's normal for them, which is good and bad. So maybe that'll help out though. Hopefully, Ruby, if you're watching this or see it later on, I'd love to, you know, help you out if you need help with Retina images, figuring out how to do that. Could be good. So great question. So what do you suggest background images again for the top hero image? So this watch video CTA will still be viewable and scale on mobile better. Totally agree that would be a great option. This is again something that's not overly complex. Visually, there's not too much going on, so this is a great candidate for using actual HTML and CSS, a bulletproof button, and just having that background image of that server stack. It looks like, yeah, it's from their data centers. So all these servers, that can just be a background image on this table cell. And then inside of there, you have, an H1 or an H2 for that data center systems title. You have a paragraph of text or like a span or something for this Dynamax structural data center copy. And then you can have this CTA just be a bulletproof button that are similar to the ones down here. You can even style it like that. You add a little white border around it. You can use an HTML character entity for this right arrow. Super, I don't want to say like super simple, because if you're not familiar with how to do that, it might be a little bit trickier, but there are tools out there. There's backgrounds.cm is a great tool for using background images. Again, there's posts on, I think we have like an ultimate guide to using background images on the Litmus blog. That'll make it easier for you. So this is a perfect candidate for using background images though. So great suggestion there. I really appreciate it. All right, running kind of long time, so I do want to get to the last one here. And this one is for a cycling company. It's from Jennifer for Cannondale Bicycles. And this one, I guess before we dig in here, Jay just mentioned faux video or CSS animation, like frame animation, could be really cool in the place of a GIF for that email as well. So, you're promoting a video. So you could fake that video by using CSS and, animations and GIFs and all that kind of stuff to create this faux video effect that is a lot more engaging than just a static image. And there's a great article, again, on the Litmus blog. It sounds like I'm, just hammering on the blog, but I'm very proud of the work we do over there and the team does. And we have a ton of great resources at litmus.com/blog. But Alice Lee, who used to work at Litmus and has since moved on to Squarespace, where she's doing awesome work on their email tool, has a great article on the faux video technique that allows you to use CSS, use code, use GIFs to create this really dynamic, engaging, just moving animated email. And that works really, really well for video content too. So I think that would be a great option as well. So moving on to this last email for today, Jennifer was sending on behalf of Cannondale Bicycles. She's a marketer, and really this is all about engaging their customers. But I think this is a key point here, not just selling bikes. So would love to, get feedback on layout, design, overall marketing. I don't know if I can help out too much with the segmentation stuff, because I don't know how this is being segmented right now. But yeah, let's see what this email from Cannondale looks like. I remember it looking really nice when I was loaded it in here. And it's super straightforward, super simple. Nice white space. The imagery is fantastic. I love this. This cyclist, Danny Martinez, apparently, getting a victory in some cycling event. I'm not up to speed on what the big events are beyond the the Tour de France, but looks really happy. He's throwing up that heart sign with his hands. Great picture there. Nice and colorful. Like it just feels really, really good in this email. So I love the imagery in this email. One thing, I know that the focus is on engaging their audience as opposed to just selling to them. So obviously this isn't like a product focused email. But I feel like it could use a little bit more of a product focus or be more specific about how Cannondale helped Danny Martinez win this, stage 13 of this race. So it doesn't really mention anything about Cannondale other than it has the logo up here. I'm assuming that Mr. Martinez is riding a Cannondale bicycle. That's why he's featured here. But it doesn't say anything about, Cannondale being a key component of his win, and I think that's really doing like a disservice to the brand, because it's great to see. Like, I can make the assumption that that's a Cannondale bike. He's a Cannondale cyclist, and I can make that connection, but I think it works well to spell things out a little bit more clearly for a lot of cases, and this is one of those cases. So maybe you could do that as simply as in the copy, like, see how it talks about the stage being set for EF Pro Cycling to put together a masterclass in team tactics. You have the CTA read the story, which isn't like super exciting, but maybe do something like see how Cannondale helped Danny to the top. Something like that that makes it more clear that Cannondale was like a key component of that win. The company sponsors and has the top cyclists in the world riding their bikes. Would be an awesome way to do that. And I don't think it's really like, it's not selling anything necessarily. It's just saying, you're really proud of what the cyclists are doing that you work with. You're proud of giving them the tools they need to excel in their field and do their best. Don't shy away from that. Be proud of that fact and make it clear that you are part of that and you're helping people. So let's see what this looks like with images turned off. So I think this is actually great for images turned off. Like, I'm not too worried about there not being usable alt text for these images. I love that image, but the design is so simple and straightforward. Like, the one piece of content is very straightforward that I think it actually works really well like this when images are disabled. It's straight to the point. It almost creates a sense of mystery because it doesn't have that imagery. So it's talking about this win, but you might not be familiar with Danny Martinez, and you might want to be like, oh yeah, I want to learn more about his win. Like, that sounds like an awesome race. Let's read that full story and go over there. I do see maybe add a little bit of padding or spacing between these social links down here. That's a little bit unfortunate when when images are turned off. But very clean design. Yeah, really good emails mentions very clean design. Totally agree. On mobile, it just kind of scales down. This is, a clear example of why I typically favor single column emails when I'm designing emails from scratch, which we did in last live stream actually on YouTube. So check that out if you haven't already, and we're going to do it again next month. But there's nothing complex going on here. So when it's viewed on mobile, it scales down nicely. It's super usable. The CTA is nice and big. It's going to be eminently useful and usable for people when they're viewing it on mobile. White space is great. I would say maybe add a little bit more white space between the CTA and this bottom image, or honestly just getting rid of this bottom image might clean things up a little bit. If we go into the code here, just rip out that table cell, like, that might be all you need for an email like this. Maybe add a little bit of space underneath this here between that and the footer. You already have this fantastic shot of Danny up here winning. You might not need that secondary one. It feels a little bit kind of just like thrown in because they happen to have that shot. Just keep it simple, straightforward, clean, well designed, and I think, maybe adding in a little bit more clear language about how Cannondale was the one helping him ride to victory would be a great way to make it more clear the role of the company and why they're sending out this email beyond just celebrating a cyclist winning an event coming up here. But yeah, if there's any more feedback before we wrap up, feel free to throw it in the chat there and make sure I hit everything. So it does look, I'm going to refer to you as Monkey. It does look like it's a mobile first kind of approach. I would kind of wager that it's probably technically on, the code level, it's probably desktop first. But that single column kind of design feels very mobile first, from like a visual perspective, because it does scale down so well, and scale up so well. But yeah, I think that's a great way to tackle email design. um, but yeah, I think overall it's a great email campaign. Just needs a little bit more clarity. Don't shy away from promoting yourself and your value, even in emails like this, even if you're not directly selling, because I think that's ultimately disservice to the company. And you should be proud of the work that you do with your partners and with your customers. So lean into it. So that's it for today's emails. We have I don't have the link here, but I'll put it in the chat at some point here. But we've been tweeting out on the Litmus Twitter account. We'll be mentioning it more in upcoming newsletters, all that kind of stuff. Let me switch back. All right, I think I dropped off for a second there. Hopefully, I'm back on. All right, I think I'm back on here. My connection got lost there on my streaming software. Stopped for a second. But again, we're gonna be doing this. Yeah, earlier this month I live code an email. That's the second Friday of every month. I think in February I'm probably gonna revisit that email and go through and troubleshoot it, figure out what's breaking down. I know there's some stuff breaking in Outlook and on some mobile clients, and see how we can optimize that and just go through that troubleshooting process. So be sure to join me next month, second Friday. And then every last Friday of the month moving forward, we're going to be doing live optimization, just like we did today. This was the test run, so I appreciate everybody jumping in and using the chat to give your feedback. I love hearing it. I think I'm getting a little bit better handle on the live stream software and making sure everything's working well. So we're going to have some guests coming up in future months. So it'll be not just me talking through the emails and getting your feedback, but get a couple of email friends, some experts to give their feedback as well, which gets really fun hearing other people's opinions too of these different email campaigns. If you haven't already, just subscribe to the YouTube channel for Litmus. You should see a nice big button right on the page there. We would love it. We're going to be publishing more videos a lot more frequently. Earlier today, I actually published a team spotlight for James Halliday, which is actually employee Litmus, or Litmus employee number 1. He's been in the company for over 12 years at this point, which is pretty wild. He's a great guy. So you can hear about, how Litmus has changed over the years, what makes Litmus so special. There's a great kind of surprise announcement at the 6-minute mark that's worth tuning into. We're going to be reposting, I'm going to be uploading really soon some past webinars, some different Litmus Live videos from past conferences. All that kind of stuff is going to be living right here at the YouTube channel, so definitely check that out. Subscribe. We'll be reminding people in the Litmus newsletters as well, so if you're not subscribed to those, just go to litmus.com/subscribe to get all those email newsletters. Learn about upcoming webinars, events, ebooks, all that kind of stuff, feature updates, all that good stuff. So I'm glad. Jay, thank you so much. Monkey, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. But that's going to wrap it for today. I appreciate everybody joining in, giving their feedback via chat. I loved it. And I look forward to the next one. So feel free to join next month. And last Friday of every month is live optimization. Second Friday is practical stuff. And I will see you next time. So have a great weekend, everybody.